Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I'm Darshan Usman. The headlines. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken meets Nigeria President Tinubu, other African leaders Tuesday. Liberia's President Bola suffers heat exhaustion after taking oath. Many dead, 106 injured at senior high school in Yaoundé. Details of these stories and more shortly. News Central now at this hour begins in West Africa, where the inauguration of Liberia's new president, Joseph Boakai, was on Monday, marked by the 79-year-old leader's brief spell of exhaustion due to soaring temperatures. Boakai, whose age and health are the source of much discussion in the West African country, had to pause and sit down to finish his address in front of the parliament in Monrovia, where foreign delegations and local officials had gathered. Secretary General of Bokai's party, Amos Twe, said heat exhaustion contributed to the few minutes of disruption in his speech, but the speech ended successfully and the president was advised by his doctors to come home as a result of that. He added that the president has resumed his normal presidential duties.
That when we work hard together as a country, there is nothing that history has imposed upon us, including the fundamental problem that we cannot overcome. It will ensure we rebuild the broken infrastructure and improve the delivery of health social services, such as combating the drug epidemic prevailing our youth and eating away the future of our country.
My expectation is I see a better Liberia. I expect good governance and the rule of law and the fight against corruption. As a matter of fact, the president inaugurated today is an icon of integrity who has worked in the Liberian government for over 42 years with no corruption charges. So we believe that he will fight corruption, he will bring Liberia back to the international contacts that we have earlier on.
In the meantime, some Liberians have been reacting to the inauguration of President Joseph Boakai. News Central sought the reaction of some of those present at the inauguration.
We're happy to see this wonderful day of the President of the Republic of Liberia, Ambassador Joseph Boakai, and Vice President Jeremiah Kwantung. This is a celebration of the Liberian people. We have seen the peaceful transfer of power from former President George Weah to President Joseph Boakai.
It's an exciting moment for Liberia. The country is back, and particularly I'm interested in the fact that there will be a new reordering of this country. The country is now finding the right path, accountability in governance, responsible leadership, integrity, unity, integration of the entire populace of Liberia. It's an exciting moment for me personally and for Liberia generally.
I believe today marks a historic day in our region, with Liberia setting a very good democratic precedent, a peaceful transfer of power, and
Now away from Liberia, the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken will on Tuesday meet the presidents of Nigeria and Cote d'Ivoire in a bid to forge a united front with key African democracies as crises engulf the world. In Abidjan, Blinken will meet Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara before heading to Abuja to see Nigerian President Bola Tinubu, elected last year on the platform of economic reforms. The two West African powers have largely stood by the United States despite unease in much of the continent over the Western focus on arming Ukraine and, more recently, U.S. support for Israel in its war with Hamas. Nigeria, Africa's most populous country, and Cote d'Ivoire, as well as Kenya in East Africa, joined the United States in a United Nations vote in 2022 to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Let's talk security matters, where Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa has advocated the use of non-kinetic approach in the ongoing fight against criminality. He says no fewer than 2,000 Boko Haram terrorists, through a non-kinetic approach, surrendered to troops in the height of insurgency in the country. Musa spoke while delivering a lecture at the opening of the National Security Course on Psychological Operations and Strategic Communication on Monday in Abuja. He was represented by the Director of Training Defense Headquarters, Doprier Matthew, and Musa, however, said the military has upscaled the use of hard and soft power in counterinsurgency operations to contain emerging and changing nature of adversaries. Now, to discuss this, we're joined by Associate Professor Eugene Obiora. Eugene, Department of History and War Studies, Nigerian Defense Academy. Thank you so much for joining me on the news, Prof.
Thank you very much.
All right, so Professor, what is your immediate reaction on the suggestion by the Chief of Defense Staff, that's General Christopher Musa, on the use of non-kinetic approach in the ongoing fight against criminality and insurgency?
Well, he made a very valid point by making such suggestions. But we have to take into consideration that nations that face internal security threats have three options in tackling such threats. The first is the proactive option. The second is the reactive option. Then the third one, which I don't even recommend, is to do nothing at all. So we are left with two options, either to be proactive or to be reactive. And going by what has happened in Nigeria so far, we have tried both options. But it appears that the institutions, both for defense and security, are not living up to expectation. The idea is very noble. This is not the first time we are hearing it from defense and security chiefs. But the problem is, institutions of the state entrusted with security management, are they living up to date? Because I have to draw an analogy. America is facing internal problem of gun possession. And almost every other day, people are gunned down in different parts. But their institutions are working.
All right, Professor, I was actually just going to link that. But how possible is it to actually get results, by using non-kinetic approach when the groups you're fighting against use kinetic approach?
Well, what I'm telling you is that insurgency is a very stubborn and resilient phenomenon. It is either you don't allow it to erupt, or if you erupt, you continue to react to the insurgents. So the situation we find ourselves is a situation where we are permanently reacting. We are not proactive, because I wish we had enough time, maybe an hour or even less than that, to discuss the causative factors midwifing these insurgency and threats to the state. But as we speak, we can do something by following what the Chief of Defense Staff said. Maybe he has a new dimension and marching orders for his men. But we've had this type of rhetoric in the past. It's reactive. It's not proactive.
All right,
because
Professor,
it means that
if you
it
can
is only
actually
when
tell
they
us,
strike.
Professor, you know, there's been so much talk about insecurity, not just now, but, you know, in previous years. What would you say are the reasons that the state of insecurity seems to have risen and, you know, it's now a major concern, specifically in the Federal Capital Territory? We all heard stories about, you know, the rise in kidnappings in FCT in the past few days.
Well, manifestation of this type of threats and insecurity, they constitute a symptom, not the cause of a problem. And if you have malaria, go to the hospital, unless the doctor sends you to the lab. The doctor, if he gives you paracetamol, the fever will come back. So we have to find out why we have these multifaceted threats and nip them in the bud. If we don't find out, they will continue to reoccur. Today is Abuja, tomorrow Abuja may be the next, and next tomorrow Port Harcourt and Lagos. So we, as I said, we are reacting. We are not going to the root of the problem. And for us to go to the root of the problem, we need enough time to trace the genesis, the source of all these threats. And when we need them in the bud, all these symptoms, whether in Abuja, Kano, any paper, they will disappear.
All right, thank you so much, Professor. Really wish we had more time to discuss this, but we'll definitely, you know, reconnect with you to discuss insecurity in Nigeria further. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Let's now tell you that the Fulani community in Plateau State has condemned the accusations in some quarters that they are the perpetrators of the Christmas Eve attacks in some parts of the state. News Central's Chizoba Nyongwe has more on this in her report.
The attacks of December 24 last year on Bokos, Barkin-Ladi, and Mangu local government areas of Plateau State may have been forgotten by many, but victims of those incidents continue to come to terms with the reality of what they are left to live with. As groups continue to speak on the aftermath of the incident as it concerns them, most recent is this media brief by the Fulani community who reside in these affected communities, dissociating itself from allegations of perpetrating the crime.
Going down memory lane on the genesis of crisis and quantum of losses incurred by the Fulani in Plateau State, the propaganda agenda of overbloating the recent dastardly incident of killing perpetrated on the 23rd and 24th December 2023 and linking it to Fulani nation is grossly misplaced.
They blame their inaccessibility to the media as one of the major burdens they have to bear.
Their lack of access to media, both conventional and non-conventional, is the rationale behind their inability to state to the world their plights as they happen, the way they transpire, and worse still, whenever and any incidents happen that is inimical to Fulani nation. Because of the control of the media that the government, Plateau State government has, it surprises that which states the true and favorable position of the Fulanis.
Describing the accusations as baseless analysis and discrimination, the group said it is unacceptable and must stop. How these back and forth banters will be replaced with calls and activities for the enthronement of peace in the state is rather pertinent for the security of lives and property, which would usher in development that everyone prays for. In Jos for News Central, I am Chizoba Anyuwi.
I will come back to Jos much later in the course of this bulletin. Now, from North Central, we now head to the northeast region of the country. After several years of displacement, the people of Logomani community in Borno State, northeast Nigeria, have returned home. The resettlement of the 500 households is part of efforts by the Borno State government to enable the people ravaged by insurgency pick up the pieces of their lives again. News Central's Umaru Kirawa completes the report.
One of the consequences of the Boko Haram insurgency in Nigeria's northeastern region is the displacement of thousands of persons from their ancestral homes. A sigh of relief to Alkali Abacha and other 500 heads of household of Lokmani community in Gamborungala who are now being resettled by the Borno state government since their displacement during the insurgency. The atmosphere here in Lokmani is filled with joy, relief and a renewed faith in life. Livelihood support packages like food items, bull and cow, a water pump, clothing materials, seedlings and insecticide to boost irrigation farming, in addition to cash assistance were provided to the returnees by the Borno state government.
In fulfillment of our electioneering campaign promises to the internally displaced persons in Borno state, that we shall resettle them to their original localities if voted into power. This afternoon we are here in this historic community, Logomani, in order to resettle them back home.
We can never forget this singular gesture in our lifetime.
Leadership has gone into humanity.
To strengthen community resilience, Borno state government handed over 500 units of 2-bedroom low-cost houses with basic amenities such as a primary school, health center, police station, and borehole for water provision to the people of Lokmani.
His Excellency Professor Babagana Zulum was a messiah to Borno State, and we are lucky to have him at this material time where Borno requires huge commitment, particularly in terms of rehabilitation, reconstruction, and resettlement.
Issue of major concern now are improved explosive devices and mines in the area, which the security forces have been given order to tackle.
Let me use this opportunity to commend the federal government, the leadership of Tinubu administration, as well as our development partners who have contributed immensely to the regional stabilization facilities. Germany, UK, just to mention a few. We have seen what has happened here, and I believe more communities will be resettled. I'm calling upon other countries in the world to donate to our basket fund, the Regional Stabilization Facility Fund, which is being managed by UNDP still, as well as the one UNOFA.
The resettlement of Lokmani community is no doubt a commendable effort in stabilizing the region after many years of displacement. Other communities like Guzamala and Abidjan are hopeful that their desire of returning to their homeland will be actualized soon. In Borno State for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
All right, back to Jos, where the Plateau State House of Assembly has resumed after a recess it embarked on late last year. Now today, only 8 out of the 24 members of the Assembly were in attendance. 16 lawmakers who are members of the PDP were sacked by the Court of Appeal and replaced by their opponents of the APC. At the Assembly today, there was unusual police presence to avert any breakdown of law and order after a threat by the former lawmakers of PDP extraction to attend plenary today. Addressing pressmen after their resumed plenary behind closed doors, the Speaker has this to say. So, Chizoba, hello, thank you so much for joining us. Can you go ahead and give us an update of the situation right now?
It was a little bit of drama starting from yesterday when the 16 sacked PDP lawmakers by the appeal court last November said that they would be at the House of Assembly to resume plenary today, but they had been sacked. So going by the judgment of the court, they, so to speak, are not supposed to be members of the House of Assembly, And after their sack, the APC lawmakers that were brought on board had received their certificate of return, and they were just waiting for the House of Assembly to swear them in so that officially they become members of the House to begin their legislative responsibilities. But yesterday we heard about this, and then today everybody was at the old government house because they relocated from the House of Assembly last year, saying that the place is under renovation. So at the old government house today, the sacked PDP members were on ground. I did not see the APC members that were supposed to be sworn in, actually. They were not there. But the Speaker, Honorable Gabriel Dawan, was there with the other 7 APC members also on ground. So the 8 of them were there, and they said they had met behind closed doors. Of course, they didn't allow anybody, not even the press, because I think of the contingencies, involved in it. So, but at the end of their sitting, which was actually very brief, they came out and the Speaker briefed the press. So he has said that 32 people now are fighting over 16 seats. So 16 of the APC members and then 16 of the PDP members that had been sacked, And so because of that, he said that the plenary resumed and has resumed. So legislative matters, as it is, have begun in Plateau State House of Assembly, but it was quickly called off again after their meeting to address the issue. And so the Speaker has said that they do not have the jurisdiction to attend to that matter or to confirm what the situation is actually, whether to take in the 16 APC members or the PDP members, because the Supreme Court had given judgment on the gubernatorial case earlier that the PDP has structure per se, which was the contending matter at the court as at then. So that since the Supreme Court had given judgment saying the PDP had the structure, and then it wasn't for the court to entertain the matter in the first place. And so the victory went to the PDP candidate, which is Governor Caleb Mutfwang. So based on that, the sacked PDP lawmakers are saying that since that is holding sway, they should now come back and begin their legislative matters. So some others and some quarters are saying that they should rather go back to the courts to determine actually if they should retain their seats or give way for the APC lawmakers that had been given certificates of return by the INEC rec in Plateau State to take those seats. So that was what happened. Okay. And then what caused a bit of tension was that both PDP and APC supporters were also on ground at the venue of this plenary session. I wouldn't know what that would mean, but yesterday, the member of the House that spoke to the press said that they are their constituencies, they put them on the seat, so they needed to be there for them to show support and all that.
All
so
right,
it's left for probably
before you continue, let's
give...
listen to the Speaker himself speak to pressmen and hear what he had to say.
The Plateau State House of Assembly went on recess with adjournment to resume the recess today being 23rd day of January 2024. And to God be the glory. As you can see, we have all of the recess at duly adjourned, and we are back to resume the legislative duty officially today being 23rd day of January, believing that God Almighty will take control to begin the new year with all seriousness, to give the government of President Tinubu, the executive governor of Plateau State, all the needed legislative support for the Plateau State to prosper. Thank you. We are lawmakers, but I'm in receipt of a court process that is in place. So for now, there's nothing as an assembly we can say, because as law-abiding lawmakers, we allow the institution saddled with responsibility of interpretation of the law to interpret the law. So at due cost, we'll feed the public with the next line of action. But for now, we have 8 House of Assembly members who are in place until the determination of the court process. As I'm talking to you, there are 32 members claiming 16 vacancies in the Assembly. And as I said, we as lawmakers, we are not law interpreters. So we allow the institution, that is the judiciary, to do the needful by interpreting the law. And at the right time, we know who are the rightful occupant of the 16 constituencies.
So that was the Speaker of the Plateau State House of Assembly. Well, we actually just spoke also to our News Central's correspondent in the Plateau State, and that's Chizoba and Nyongwe. Well, Chizoba would actually have to wrap up here, and we do hope that the crisis ends soon in time for the people of Plateau to be able to enjoy the dividends of democracy. Thank you so much for joining me and giving us an update on this.
Thank you for having me.
You're still watching News Central now. Coming up after the break. Many dead, 106 injured at senior high school in Yaoundé. We'll bring you more on this when we return. News Central now continues in Central Africa, where scores of students are reported to have died, while at least 106 others have been injured during a stampede at Lycée Bilingde Tugebe, located in the political capital Yaoundé. According to reports, the stampede occurred when students who were late for school rushed to enter the school gate, which had earlier been closed. The situation took a tragic turn. Many students lost their lives on site, while others were rushed to nearby health facilities. Local and national authorities have been mobilized to deal with this unexpected crisis. Medical teams, law enforcement, and psychologists were dispatched to the scene to provide immediate and necessary assistance. Joining me on the news to discuss this further is Njine Elvis Bane. He is a politician, journalist, and teacher. He joins from Yaoundé, the capital of Cameroon. Hello, Elvis. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure, madam. Thank you.
All right. So, Elvis, can you make us understand what led to the stampede, as reports say it occurred when students who were late for school rushed to enter the school gate, which had already been closed?
I'm sorry, there is too much noise from my part here. I don't know if you can just repeat your question, please.
All right. So, what I was asking is, can you give us, an update or tell us, make us understand what led to the stampede? Because we've actually heard reports, that, what led to it were students who were late for school rushing to enter the school gate because the school gate was closed. And so that was what led to the stampede.
Well, like you rightly say, we had students who were late for classes, and given that it was a Monday morning, when they generally do have a morning assembly, so the gates were locked for those who were late, and it was only after the assembly was over that the gate was open for them to get into the school campus. Unfortunately, the students began to do some sort of push forth in their numbers, and there was what the unfortunate incident occurred that happened, like we all saw in the images. But I may want to already begin by pointing out here that so far it is true that there were so many injured cases, but we have not actually been able to lay hands on any cases of loss of life like many persons reported. Because we tell you, madam, that even those who were at the scene at that particular moment, they showed us videos and declared that some were dead, but nobody actually was able to show us videos of any such cases that lost lives yesterday. So it's true, persons were wounded and transported to the hospitals. But then I would like to be a little more reserved, given that when we look or see at the rate, the degree of the violence, from the part of the children, we still want to think that some investigations will be carried out so that we actually get to the root cause to know exactly if it was just an issue of students who were late or there was something else attached to it.
Okay, well, whatever the issue is, we sincerely hope that when the results from the investigations actually come up or come out, then there will indeed be no lives lost from any of the students. But what could have motivated the students to even embark on such an action? Well, you did say investigation is still ongoing and you have no idea. But are you in support of penalties or punishments for the students involved in the incident?
But sincerely speaking, to ask about what might have pushed the children, I still say, I think we will still expect to get some investigations that will actually dig to the root causes of it for us to get ample information. But now, I will also tell you as a teacher that within the school community in Cameroon here today, violence is at an increase almost on a daily basis, given that we have lawmakers who have put in place certain measures, permit me say, to some sort of safeguard the interests of our learners here, giving them too many rights in schools, but without necessarily reminding them of their own duties and responsibilities. And so children some sort of act like they are permitted to do whatsoever thing they may want to do, knowing fully well that there are no consequential actions that will follow suit. So secondly, you will realize that there is equally this issue of drug addiction around town, because you will notice that amongst the students, apart from the students that we saw in the videos, there were also cases of some guys who came from the quarters to join in, and it was some sort of an opportunity for them. And you will realize too that there is this issue of drug abuse that is also on the rise within the school community amongst youth and students particularly. So I just want to think that an incident like this one is just a wake-up call to the authorities that be, to know that there is much work for us to do as a state, as school institutions, and then with the society all together. We need to work hand in glove to see into it that concrete measures are taken to resolve this issue of indiscipline on campuses, because children cannot continue to act as though they think that they are what we may even call they are some sort of all permitted, you see, as opposed to what school rules and regulations actually do stipulate.
All right, so what mechanisms should be put in place to mitigate, such an incident going further? Because, looking at the video, it looks really distressing and quite chaotic.
Well, madam, I think, like I've already mentioned here, the state of Cameroon, alongside school authorities and the society, parents, everybody involved, they need to come together in synergy and reflect together on appropriate measures that need to be put in place, you see, to be able to curb indiscipline in schools. Secondly, there is a need for these children to be constantly counseled and reminded as per their duties and responsibilities within the society, in their schools, and vis-a-vis the state of Cameroon. Because like I say, many of them do act as though they have just their rights, but they do not have responsibilities and duties, which is not the case.
All right, well, thank you so much, Engineer Elvis Bane, for joining me to speak on this. Thank you so much for giving us a little of your time to discuss this.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you. All right, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, News Central Now continues. Thank you for staying with us. Now, as South Africa celebrates 3 decades of democracy this year, President Cyril Ramaphosa has praised the accomplishments of the class of 2023 matriculants, saying their success demonstrates the progress made to improve educational accessibility and equality. Now, according to President Ramaphosa, the matric exam pass rate has steadily improved over the last decade, rising from 78% 10 years ago to 80% in 2022, with the class of 2023 setting a new record. Now, for the many young people from disadvantaged backgrounds who passed matric this year, the president emphasized that being given an opportunity to work or study further is a way out of poverty. He further urged that these young people must be given the hope and chance they need. Now, to discuss this, we're joined by Dr. Viwe Luxomo, Senior Lecturer, Adult Community Continuity Education at University of South Africa. Hello, Dr. Viwe. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Hello, and greeting to your viewers as well.
Okay, all right. So for the first time in 30 years, South Africa has seen an increase in the pass rate of matriculants. Now, in your view, what has changed?
It is quite a stelling of results that we have seen in the past decades, and this has been gradually increasing over time. And I think that as a country, and we are beginning to learn how to actually improve on education, because South Africa for a very long time has been proverbial for low quality of education. There have been complaints in several sectors that the money we put in education and the results we get are not matched. So I think there's an effort, concerted effort that has been put by the system at large to try to improve on the metric attainment and general on education as a whole throughout the system.
All right, Doctor. Now, the class of 2023 are pupils who had to endure tough times of learning, especially, during the COVID-19 pandemic. Could this be a sign that South Africa is working hard to change the narrative about education?
That is very true. That is very true. And I share the same sentiment that is expressed by the president on this one, that in particular, the South Africa, because of its inequality, you will find that the children that are coming from relatively rich family or families that can afford could not have a problem in educational attainment. But it is those young people that are coming from disadvantaged background, and this makes the bulk of the population that were not attaining education. And you must remember, in South Africa, attainment of metric is about citizenship. There are two documents that are important in this country. I normally say when I speak to people that one document is the ID, and the second most important document is actually the metric certificate. Without metric certificate in this country, you cannot do as basic jobs as working in the in a retail store. You can't get the basic jobs that are gained by other people in other countries. So metric is very important. But as a realization of this, and now the government and the schools in general are beginning to change the narrative that even the poor child can attain. It's no longer a reserve of the rich child. Anyone can attain a metric in this country.
Talking about poor children, I seem to remember a report from a year ago that said that most children in the country could not read. And, seeing this is just really, really applaudable.
Yes, indeed. We have had that challenge of people because of the policies to make the system look good. There has been a sense that there were young people that were pushed through the system without actually obtaining the right levels of quality of education. But with the right effort and the right attitude from everyone, I think we are beginning to see that that kind of narrative is beginning to change. It's another debate altogether to argue about the quality of education. What is the quality of education that these young people are attaining? There's another debate altogether. But I am impressed by the very idea that as a young person who has wasted 12 years of your life in education, it is now possible for anyone, regardless of where they are coming from, to actually obtain the last level of the last grade of education.
For your insight on this, Dr. Viwe Lugzomo. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Now, News Central resumes after this short break. It was a day of incredible drama at the Africa Cup of Nations as final group matches were concluded in Groups A and B. While the Super Eagles needed an own goal to see off a much-changed Guinea-Bissau, host Cote d'Ivoire were on the receiving end of a 4-0 thrashing by Equatorial Guinea in one of the biggest upsets in the competition's history. It was also Cote d'Ivoire's biggest ever home loss. Now elsewhere, Egypt conceded a late goal to play out a 2-2 draw with Cape Verde, while Ghana let a 2-0 lead slip in another 2-2 draw with Mozambique. Now here to review an incredible day of action is News Central's correspondent, Favor Itua. Hello, Favor. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, just before you reply, bonsoir. And the Super Eagles are through to the next round, but, you know, they've not looked impressive so far, have they? A lot of people seem to think they haven't. Guys, for that, I was really looking forward to speaking to Favor, but we have been unable to connect with him. But we will definitely have him in our subsequent bulletin. And that's all we have at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our top stories. We told you that U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken set to meet Nigeria's President Tinubu, other African leaders Tuesday. We also told you that Liberia's President Bola suffered heat exhaustion after taking oath. And finally, you heard that many dead, 106 injured at Senior High School in Yaoundé. Send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.